Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today we'll start our session. Today's my topic is statistics. So you can see, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen, please? Are you able to see? Madam, can you see the screen?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. See, here I have displayed the word cloud for data scientist skills required. One of the major skill is machine learning, and there is also statistics, which is very important skill. And it is actually 80% of machine learning is statistics, and Python is one more skill. So we will be concentrating on statistics and Python in today's session. And the next, so mainly we are concentrating on statistics. So before I define statistics, if you take statistics, see, the earlier days we used to call it as statistics. Now, if you put in a beautiful frame and keep it, it will become machine learning. So mostly machine learning is statistics. Now, when you take the statistics or machine learning, suppose if you take if you are actually just I want to start with some joke here. Three machine learning scientists, they went to forest for hunting, and the first machine learning engineer, he shooted to the left side of the target, which may be something, and another second machine learning engineer shooted at the right side of the target. Then third one said we reached the goal, because the machine learning will never shoot the target. It will be always having the boundaries, and within that it can shoot the target. So that is one just thing I want to share with you. Am I audible? Is it clear? Voice is clear? My voice, is it clear? Madam, is my voice clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, whatever, because it is more hands-on, so I want to have more hands-on session. So what I am doing is I want to have Python. In Python, we are touching upon some very popular and very useful packages like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and Seaborn. So these are the packages I'm going to touch upon. I may not be giving every details of the packages, whichever essential for our implementation. We are going to use them, and I'm going to use Google Colab, which is a very powerful tool here. You need not have anything. If you have browser, and if you have some Google account, you can use it. You might have already used it. So I'm going to implement Python in Google Colab environment, and Google Colab environment has very powerful. It will provide you some powerful and sophisticated environment, like some hardware and memory. That's what Google Colab does. So we are doing all our hands-on on Google Colab. Now, briefly, I'll tell you about NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and Seaborn very briefly, because we are going to use them. So you know that Python is very powerful language, and the main power of Python lies in its open source library. The huge library is there, and that library is making the Python very powerful. And already the core Python, without the packages, whatever I have mentioned, they themselves has got some powerful packages. Like suppose if you want to deal with some data structures, there are some data structures, list, tuples, sets, dictionaries, that are very powerful, and they allow you to do some important activities. But they are a NumPy above this Python, a NumPy package is built, and this package actually, even though there are the whatever we can do with NumPy, we can also do it without NumPy, but NumPy has got its own uh, power. The main power of Python, the NumPy is it will exploit the uh, environment in which you are working very efficiently. Like it will make use of the memory efficiently, especially cache. It will make use of the it will make use of the processors efficiently, because if you are giving some code, it will optimize the code so that that code uses the processor and cache very efficiently. When the program has to execute fast, then the important thing is the cache. So the important thing that is required is cache, and second important thing that is required is the of course the second important thing that is important thing that is required is microprocessor along with cache. So Python exploits this two very efficiently. Sorry, NumPy exploits them very efficiently. That is one powerful feature of NumPy. Okay, that is one more power of NumPy is it has got very powerful functions that are there in NumPy. We are going to use some functions, and one more very powerful feature along with these two features which I gave, like exploiting the hardware or the environment. The very powerful feature is broadcasting. So broadcasting is a very important and powerful feature which makes NumPy very simple to use and write the code. So broadcasting makes very complex statements very simple. That's what broadcasting does. So we are going to see some examples, if possible, on broadcasting, because our concentration is statistics. As part of that, somewhere if broadcasting is required, I'm going to use that. So that is actually the NumPy. Then there is Pandas. Pandas is especially built for machine learning. But when you take the libraries that are there in Python, they are built one on the other. Like if you take Pandas, I'll just give you one diagram just to indicate how Pandas is. Just one simple. Okay, I'll draw this. So NumPy is the library. On that library, the Pandas is built. When you take the Pandas is built on NumPy. That's what I want to say. So Pandas make use of the NumPy facility as it is. So because it is built over the NumPy. So that is what I want to say. NumPy is library which is below, and above that the Pandas is built. So Pandas, I told you NumPy utilizes the environment and broadcasting very efficiently. So Pandas, because of NumPy, all those facilities are readily available to Pandas. So Pandas is mainly for the machine learning, because even though NumPy is very powerful, it has got some limitations. Like when you take machine learning, we use huge data, and data cannot have labels if you take NumPy. So there will be just data, but no label is associated with data in NumPy. But in Pandas, we can attach a label to the data. So labeling is not possible with NumPy, so Pandas can do it. Then when you take one more powerful feature that is required for any machine learning is grouping of data, and NumPy does not have that facility readily, but Pandas can group the data based on some attribute. So that is one more powerful feature Pandas has got. So whatever limitations that are there in NumPy, and those limitations are overcome in Pandas. One more is when you take the data, whatever you take the data like statistics, the first activity in statistics is procuring the data. And when you procure the data, data will be procured from different sources, but the data may not be available in the desired form. Sometimes the data may be missing, or some data may not be proper. So in case of pandas, that missing data can be automatically filled by using some algorithm and functionality. So that is actually some features that are there in pandas, and that are not there in NumPy I have given. So whatever features that are there in pandas in NumPy, they are there in pandas also. And additionally, like pre-processing to fill the data, visualizing the data. But visualization pandas will do on its own, but it will take help of the other libraries which I'll give you. And summarizing the data, visualizing, pre-processing, storing, wrangling, and ingesting. These are some additional facilities that are there in pandas. We are going to see some of them, not all, because it's not possible in some limited sessions. So we are mainly using NumPy and pandas. Initially, we'll be using NumPy, then later pandas. And pandas mainly has got very frequently used objects like series and data frames. So pandas uses two important objects like series. I'll try to give. So it has got two objects, like series is one object which is used by pandas for time series, and it is also very frequently used. More than series, data frame is also used. Data frame we are going to use in our sessions. We are not going to use series because it is used for time series. I don't think we can cover time series. So we are mainly using data frames. Every column in the data frame by itself is a series. So we are going to use mainly data frames and series objects that are part of pandas. So using these objects, the pandas can do a lot of activities. So that is what the brief introduction to the pandas and NumPy. And Matplotlib and Seaborn are mainly for visualization to draw the graphs. So Matplotlib is again the basic library. It has got so many powerful functions to visualize the data. Over Matplotlib, Seaborn is built. Again, like whatever relationship that is there between NumPy and pandas, the same relationship is there between Matplotlib and Seaborn, because Matplotlib is the base library for drawing some visualizations. And to make the visualization look much better, Seaborn is another tool built over that. So Matplotlib is there, over that Seaborn is there. So these are the things we learn as part of this session. So that is one thing we will do it. Next is we'll continue our the presentation. Like that's brief introduction about the Python, what we are going to do it. Next we will be, because most of it is statistics, we'll be learning the statistics. The basic definition of statistic is collecting, processing, describing, and drawing inferences from data. So when you take the collecting, as already I told you, it is a big task, and also a lot of constraints are there, because the data is available from different sources. Sometimes it is readily available. Sometimes it may not be possible to get the data directly. Sometimes it may not be available in the required format. So collection is very big task, but it is not part of a machine learning engineer. So we are not going to discuss anything about collecting. We assume that data is readily available because it is not part of ML engineer. So by assuming that the data is available, we'll do it. Now, next thing is processing. Processing is one important activity because sometimes the data is with different dimensions and units and different ranges. So to bring the data into one particular form, you can also do some pre-processing, like importantly standardizing the data, normalizing the data. Mostly we are going to see the standardizing the normalizing data. We are going to learn about this as part of this course. That is second part of statistic. Third is describing and drawing inferences. Mainly our session is describing and drawing inferences because we are going to learn about statistics, which is broadly divided into two categories. One is descriptive statistics and another is inferential statistics. So that is, so we have our main concentration in this session and tomorrow's session is describing and drawing inferences from data. Like when you take so when you take the data, data is very huge and we cannot understand anything when you take the data as it is. So describing the data is very important part of the statistics. So we'll be concentrating on describing and drawing inferences. That is, we'll be learning much about that. Now, when you take so the main goal of statistic is studying large collection of people or entities. So our goal is to study large collection, but ideally we are expected to study the large collection of people or entities, but it may not be possible to study all the entities because it is economically it may not be possible, or there may be several constraints to study the people, all people together at a time. It sometimes it may be impossible to do it. So that's why even the goal is to study the large collection of people or entities, but we will be studying only samples. That's why there are some key terms here: population, sample, and so population, sample, and sample statistics and parameter. These are the things we are going to we have to define. When you take population is the huge data which we are going to study. Even suppose if you take election predictions, the people who vote come under population. But the predictions will not be made on the populations because it may not be possible. So we take sample people, sample group of population for studying and drawing inferences from sample applicable to the population. So when you take the sample, it should we have to be careful in selecting the sample because the sample should be the reflection of or representation of the population. Otherwise, whatever inferences we make, it may fail. Now, when you take the statistic or parameter, whatever we have, parameter are the properties we study with respect to the population, but statistic is actually the parameter we study with respect to sample. And using this statistic, we draw inferences about the population. So statistic is with respect to the sample and parameter is with respect to the population. So we use statistic to draw inferences about the huge population. That is actually the goal of statistic. The sample, as I told you, should be the representation or reflection of the population. For example, suppose if you want to if you want to predict the election, and if you go to a particular college and ask the people and predict, it is not reflection of population, that sample whatever we have taken, because that sample is only students, it is not a complete representation of, because there are only few age group people and their viewpoint will be different and other people viewpoint will be different. So the sample, whatever we take, should be the full representation of population. So otherwise the biasing will be there and predictions or inferences, whatever we make, may not be proper. So that is the thing. So the sample should be sample should reflect or represent the population. Then statistics, as I told you, divided into two types, two categories based on the set of technique we use. They are divided into two topics, like descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. So from population, we take sample and we get some summary of the sample data, and that is descriptive statistics. And from the sample data, we do some draw some inferences, means some conclusions about the population. That is the inferential statistics. So the statistics, two types, descriptive and inferential statistics. Mainly, will initially we start with descriptive statistics, then we'll go to the inferential statistics. And when you take the next thing we have to see is data, because see, we need to know about the data types, because whatever statistical method we apply, we cannot apply in the similar way to all the types of data. For example, some statistics we can apply on categorical data. I'll give you what is what briefly. You may be already knowing about this. And some we can apply on numerical data and other way around. So it is necessary to know the type of the data, because we until unless we know about the type of the data, we cannot apply some statistics, because it is not possible to apply everything on each type of data. So based on the type of the data, we use the appropriate statistics to draw inferences. So the data types here broadly are divided into categorical and numerical. When you take the categorical data, it is mainly it is text kind of thing. It is a name kind of thing, which will be representing the data of categorical data. Like for example, I'll tell you, when you take like suppose if I take branch, I'll go to this. Suppose if I take branch of engineering like CSC, ECE, these are all categorical data, CE. Similarly, I can take red, I can say colors like red, green, these are also categorical data. I can also take like feedback on some faculty, like I can take very poor, moderate. These are all categorical data. Now, when you take this, when you take the categorical data, it is divided into two. One is nominal and ordinal. So if I can order them and give them some importance or order them, then it is ordinal data, otherwise it is nominal data. For example, if you take the branches CSE, ECE, ME, mechanical, civil, I cannot order them. Similarly, colors, red, green, blue, whatever color I have, I cannot order them. I cannot say red is greater than green, is greater than blue, something like that. But when I take very poor, moderate, I can order them. Very poor is less than poor is less than moderate. So if we can order the data, it is categorical data. Otherwise, it is nominal data. Now, when you take this categorical data, normally we use text. We can also give some numbers. It is not a problem. But if you take categorical data, like I told you, based on the type, we can apply some statistics. I cannot find mean, median, mean of a categorical data, even though I use some numbers. For example, suppose if I take branches, colors, I can give some numbers like red I can give 0, green I can give 1, blue I can give 2, but still they are categorical data because I cannot find average kind of thing from this. So it is still categorical data. So if it is a text data, some label of data or name of data, it is categorical data. If it is something numerical number, so it is numerical data, and numerical data, you know, they are divided into two: discrete and continuous. Discrete have specific values. Continuous data will have infinite number of values. There is no limit. I can take any real number continuously. So that is the type of data. Next, we'll move to descriptive statistics. When you take descriptive statistics, as I told you, to describe and understand the features of specific data set by giving short summaries about the sample and measures of the data. So we actually use the descriptive statistics to um, give some to find some summaries about the data. So like when you take descriptive statistics, they are divided into mainly central tendency and measures of variation or measures of spread. So we'll be learning about all this, like central tendency, one group, measures of variation is another group, like range, interquartile range, variance, standard deviation, coefficient of variation, and shape. There is skewness. It is one more the one more feature we'll be applying on the data. Then also quartiles, which is a special case of percentiles. So we'll be learning about the percentiles also. Even though arithmetic mean, median, mode, you are already come across very briefly, I will touch upon them, and we'll go for implementation because based on the type of based on the data we have, there will be some relationship between mean, median, and mode. So we are going to see that. Then we'll be learning about the percentile and quartile, then the measures of spread, then skewness, which gives the shape of the data. So that is those are the descriptive statistics we are going to learn. Before we go to Python, we'll see what are the briefly we'll see measures of central tendency, because when you take the mean, median, and mode, they are actually measures of central tendency. So where the midpoint is there, what is the average value, those things, which item occurs very frequently is actually the bold. So we have three parameters mainly we'll be learning as measures of central tendency. One is mean, median, and mode. You know the formulas already, so I'm not going to much discuss about those things. Like median is midpoint of ordered values. Ranked here is ordered values. When you take mode, it is most frequently occurring value is mode. And one thing here is when you take some the notations, whatever we use, slightly differ from the population and sample. So when you take the mean for population, we call it as mu, and for sample it is x bar. And the number of items we represent with capital N in case of population, and small n with in case of small n in case of sample. Then when you take median is actually the middle value, but it depends upon whether the number of items are odd or even. If it is odd, it is exactly middle value, and if it is even, it is average of two middle values. That's what median is. So that's what this slide is giving. And the mode is actually most frequently occurring one, and sometimes there may be multi modes, because some values may occur several times. Like in this example, 5 and 9 are occurring maximum number of times, 3 times. So it is multi-modal. So single modal and multi-modal. If it is only one mode, it is single modal. If there are 2 modes, it is bi-modal. If it is more than one, it is, you can also call it as multi-modal one. So so mode maybe one or more modes may be present. When you take mainly mean is actually the center of it can be treated as a center of gravity of the data set, because it balances the values, right? So it is mainly center of gravity, and one property of mean is sum of deviation. So if you subtract all elements with mean, and if you sum them, it is 0. So of deviations of all the point from the mean is 0. It is one property you should know, and it is center of gravity of the data set. Next, one more point is mean is sensitive to outlier. Outlier is some extreme value. So we'll be saying how to get the outlier, what is the formula for outlier. At this stage, just remember that outlier is actually some odd man out in the data set. It is some extreme value. And when you have series of values, we'll see in hands-on, when you have series of values and if you add some outlier, the mean suddenly changes. But so we say mean is sensitive to outlier. Median and mode are not sensitive to outlier. There will not be much change in mean and median and mode when outlier is there or not. So outlier, median and mode are not sensitive, but mean is sensitive to outlier. So this is one property. Next, when data is symmetric, we'll be learning much about this, the distributions and other things. So when the data is symmetric, when balance is exactly in the middle, then the left side values and right side values are exactly same as far as weight is concerned, like this diagram is showing, mean equals to median equals to mode. That is what the relation. So when the data set is perfectly symmetric distribution, then mean, median, and mode are equal. But we are going to see this some hands-on on this. So we will see the right skewed or left skewed. So we'll be learning skewness also, the formula, and what for we use skewness. So when it is right skewed, you, as the diagram indicates, mean is greater than, median is greater than mode, because mainly the concentration of data is at left side, and there are several values at right side, but their number will be less. They are spread, many values are spread, but main concentration is at left side. That is the positive skewed or right skewed data. And in left skewed data, the concentration is at right side. On right side, mainly the data is at right side. There are values which are spread to the long distance left side. So that is actually negative skewed or left skewed. And in this case, mean is less than, median is less than mode. So these are the properties there. So before we proceed with the next topic, so I want to give some hands-on because we should be exposed to the pandas, NumPy, and other things. So I'll run through this. So for this, I told you we are going to use Google Colab. I may be going fast because I have to cover a lot of things. So I may be going little fast. So I'll start the Google Colab here. So if you are, it is not a difficult environment. It is very easy environment. The main advantage of Google Colab is you can combine the nodes with the programs. That is one greatest thing. And you can also run some operating system commands also. So I'll start a new notebook. Then we have to give some name. So it is getting connected. Yeah, this is the Google Colab, very simple environment. Give some name here. So I'll say FDP. At 18 July. So I'm giving. So if you take here, this is the connection. We should connect to the environment. So we have to connect first. Or if you execute it directly, you can get the connection. So it will be connected to the cloud. We can run the code, and we can also have nodes kind of thing here. For example, so I'll give some. I can give some headings here. So I can give some headings using hash the big h1 heading in suppose HTML. The highest heading is h1. So one hash is kind of h1. So I'll say statistics. I'll name this session as. Then I'll go another text. See, you can write code or text. So if you write this way, it is managing is very easy. So within this, I'll say descriptive statistics. So this is within this. Suppose if I close this, everything will be closed. That is the advantage. And within this, I want to have. So if you want to manage the things, it is easy here. That's why I'm preferring nowadays. People are preferring this Google Colab, especially for delivering lectures and giving hands-on. It is a very beautiful tool. You can also use it for your students. So I'll also be using next thing like I'll say measures of centrality, because the first thing is measures of centrality. So I'll be using measures of centrality as I'll use this as H3. So it requires 3 hashes. So it is not a difficult tool to master. It is very easy. So I don't have time to do this, because it will take time to do write programs and other things. So first thing is we'll see, because our aim is to go for distributed data. So I'll give some data. So we also require some packages from Python. So the packages which we require is NumPy is the first package, as I told you. And always we use some aliases in Python to make use of package. It is not compulsory, but short aliases we use. And some well-known aliases are well-known aliases are used, like NumPy is always used with NP. Even though we can use whatever you want across the industry, across the programmer, some standard notations are used to refer the packages. So I'm using NumPy as NP, which is common. Similarly, I'll go for pandas because another package which is popularly used, and we require pandas here. So I'm going for pandas, and it is popularly, see, it is giving hint also. So we use pandas with the shortcut as PD. And as far as the library is concerned, the visualization is concerned, we go for matplotlib, as I told you, matplotlib. And within that, the sub package is there, which is pyplot, which is for drawing, and mainly it is used as PLT. Then I'll also go for Cbarn, as I told you, because it is also very popularly used. So this right now we are going to use this packages. One more package we require is, because when you take mode is not there in all these packages. So there is one more package especially to find a mode. I'm going to use the package called statistics. I'll use and I'll import only mode here. Sorry, here this is one more thing. If I want to use a particular module from a package, I can say from the package and import a particular module. So in this cases, I'm using the whole package. In this case, I'm using only one particular module, that is mode module in statistics, because NumPy does not have mode module to find the mode of the data. So I'm using statistics package for mode. Am I clear? Am I audible and following? Are you following, or am I going fast? Please, if you have any concerns about the way I am going, you please tell me. 2 minutes, I'll give you. If you have any concerns, like if I'm going fast or slow, or you have problem, it's okay. No, I can go ahead in the same way, I think. So
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead with the same phase. I'll go ahead with the same phase, and I'll go with this coding. So I'm using these packages. I can also generate the data automatically using NumPy, but initially I want to use some data on my own, simple data, which is easily understandable to you. So here in Google Colab, you can use text and codes. So if you write some code, it has to be executed. So I'm executing the code. So as soon as I execute the code, it will have some number. So I'll see there is a number. The number indicates that it is the order in which that particular part is executed. I may be writing the code going back to the beginning, and I may execute. So that order, that number gives what is the sequence of execution. So I have executed that first. So if you take NumPy mainly deals with numbers. Even you can use strings also, but mainly we deal with numbers. So mainly there is one data structure which is array. So I can use array like this, np.array as array I can use. So when I use as array, I should represent it in the form of a list. If you are already having basics about Python, it will be easy. So I'll be using some data, like some data for my purpose, like which is I want data which is symmetrically distributed. So I'm preparing something like so then I'll say I want to give some. I'm giving the data. This is the data I want to give. Now I have an array. So so I can say print. Print is the function very frequently used. So I'll execute this, and I'll see that so it displays the data. Now I want to just find mean, median, and mode. So as I told you, the NumPy has mean and mode, mean and median, but it does not have mode. So I'm depending on statistics package. So I'll simply print np.mean of data 1. So data 1 I'm using there. So I have to use that np dot. These are the built-in functions that are there in NumPy. So median, I'm using data 1. Then mode I'm not using np because there is no mode in np. So I'm using mode directly, because mode I'm mentioning directly here. If I don't mention this here, suppose just one concept, because Python this concept. So if I don't use don't mention import mode there, I have to say statistics.mode. So here I had to say statistics dot mode. Now because I have already mentioned the module I had to use, so I need not use this one. So here if I take Mean, median, I'm using that NP because I'm not mentioning those modules there. So if I mention, if I say from package and import module, I can use that module directly. Otherwise, I had to use that alias name of that package, then the module name. Module is kind of a function. So I'll say data1 here. So because here, as per my knowledge, as far as this data is concerned, it is symmetric. I feel it is symmetric. We'll see. So mean, median, and mode should be exactly same. So we'll check. I'll execute this. So they are same. So 4, 4, 4. So they are same. So when the data is symmetrically distributed, then then it is actually the mean, median, mode are same. Now to prove that, I'll also draw the diagram here. So the diagram what I want to use is the plot. So I'll go for SNS, plot SNS. To draw some plot, I'll explain this disk plot. So like data 1. So first as it is, I'll execute, then we'll improve. So it is displaying a plot, something like this. So if you take this curved one, it is actually symmetric and symmetric distribution. So we'll improve this diagram further. So I can say, I can improve it by mentioning the color. I can say color equals to red. So I can say red. Now the color used is red. So I can modify that and see, I want to see this here. The number of bins means when you take this diagram, it is histogram, a kind of histogram. So histogram is actually having the ranges or classes. So I can mention the number of bins here. I can say bins equals, because I have 7 values here with a different frequency. I'll mention bins equals to 7 so that the diagram looks much better. So now the diagram looks somewhat better compared to the earlier one. And I want to have only histogram. So I'll say I'll say KDE is to avoid that curve kind of thing. I'll say false. Then that will go. Only now see the histogram is much clearer and it is symmetrically distributed, you can observe. So when the distribution is symmetric, exactly in the center, the mean, median, and mode will be there. And I can also have the same plot with, suppose I want this line instead of the histogram, I can go for the same function and instead of KDE false, I can say hist false. Then it will give you the curve. So it is giving the curve here. So it is because the diagram indicates that it is symmetric, and when it is symmetric, it is exactly when it is symmetric, it is exactly the mean, median, and mode will be exactly same. Both sides will have same values and same set of values. Everything will be same. I can also change we can. Because we don't have time, I'm not going to go much depth into each function. You can further explore these functions. So I can say green. So color I can change and I can get the. So we get it. This is a graph, we got it. Now I'll take a different set of data. Then we'll see it is we'll see the skewed data, right skewed or left skewed data. Just I want to give some data so that it is left skewed and what is the relationship between because that is an important thing here. See, from the diagram you can decide what will be the mean, mode, what is the relationship between mean, mode, and median. So I'll take one more set of data. So like data 2 I'll take and I'll see that it is right skewed, means the mainly data is concentrated at left side, and I'll use some data, like I'll give more in the beginning. I'll give more values. So I'll say 1, 4, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, is it 10? We'll give, yeah, 10. I'll give some data so that it gives the idea about skewed and what is the relationship between the skewed data. So I'll take some 8 values of 2. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I'll take some 6 values of 3, 5, 6. Then I'll take 5 values of 4. Then I'll take 4 values of 5. So 3 values of 6. That way I want to go ahead and see 8 3 times. Sorry, I'll take 7 also. 7 3 times. Then 8 3 times. Then 9 2 times. 10 2 times. Then all 1 time. So it is up to us. Just I want to have some skewness, which will give relationship between the data items. So I'll take this data and I'll print directly the mean. Mean I'll copy. I think better than copying, typing is faster, I think. Okay, anyhow, copy it. So I'll say data 2, data 2. So here I'll print it. Now, if you observe, when it is right skewed, I gave the in the presentation, when it is right skewed, mean is greater than, median is greater than mode. So that's what it is giving here. So this is first one is mean is greater than median and median is greater than mode. I'll draw the diagram. Same, I'll take the just this diagram, the line diagram. I'll draw it for this data. So it indicates the false. I'll say data 2. I'll say bins. I'll change here because we have increased the number. So to look better, and the bins for histogram it may be red. Here I'll remove bins. So hist false. So if you take this, there is a bend here. There is a tail is there. So several values at right side. When you take this, there are several values at right side, and mainly the concentration is at left side. I'll also draw this also. It will be better. So I'll say ADE false. Then I'll say bins. How many bins? I want to have 15 bins so that it is it looks better. So, see, if you take this, there is a data mainly concentrated on left side and several values, but they are scattered at the right side. So when this is skewed, right skewed, the data is data set is right skewed, and when data set is right skewed, this formula is applicable. Like mean is greater than mode, and mode is greater. Mean is greater than median. Median is greater than mode. So this is the right skewed data. So that's what I want to give this relationship. So from the diagram, we can say where mean will be. Roughly, you can estimate what is the relationship between the data items. So the diagram clearly gives some inferences, something you can draw from it. So I'll next go for a left skewed data, some sample data similar to this I'll take, and so I'll take smaller data, not that much big data. I'll take this as data 3 as our, I'll say 1 comma 2 comma comma say 5 times 5 has come comma 6 7 comma. So this is the data, and I want to make it is make this as a left skewed, and we can say print. I'll use that. So I'll say print dot data 3 np dot median data np dot sorry, it is not np. So here the rule mean should be less than median, median should be less than mode. That's what. So mean is 5.17, less than median, which is 6, and 6 is less than mode. That is the for when the data is left skewed. This is the relationship. That's what I want to. So I'll also draw the plot. So I have that statement here. The plot, and bins, let it be 7, and east false I'll remove. I want to have KDE false, data 3 color, let it be like that. Now it is the other way around. If you compare these two graphs, this is right skewed and this is left skewed. So when it is left skewed, the relationship is different. I'll also draw this line diagram. So I'll copy this here. So I'll say hist false for KDE plot, and let it be green, and here it is. Okay, I'll draw this data 3. So this is the data 3 here. So okay, that's so this is the left skewed data. It is somewhat left skewed, and when it is left skewed, the properties are this way. When it is right skewed, the relationship between mean, median, and mode will be different. So that is one hands-on we want to have. Then we'll go ahead with our presentation. So we have completed mean, median, and mode and their relationship. Then we'll go ahead with percentile. Percentile is very one more important thing. Why percentile? We'll see. Continue from here. So next we are going to see about the percentile. Now, when you take the percentile, its use is different. It is different from the normal calculation. Normally, suppose if you have some exam for students with maximum 100 marks, and suppose if the student gets 43 out of 100, we conclude that the performance is poor. That's what we conclude. Suppose if the maximum marks are 100 and if the student is getting 43, we conclude that it is a poor marks. But we cannot come to a conclusion that 43 is poor marks, because the exam may be tough, or there may be so many constraints involved, especially exam may be tough. So I cannot say 43 is very bad, or something like that, because that's what we get from data. But if you see the data, we cannot get conclusion. But in this type of situation, percentile will help. Suppose if you take if the student got 43 and only there are, suppose 50 students have taken exam, and maximum marks are 100, one student got 43, and only 3 more students got more than 43, then we say the performance of the student who got 43 is very good. So the percentile will help this in this kind of situation. So because it is something like a relative thing, we can say. It gives the relative grading of the data. So so percentile is actually a measure in statistics, like other measures, measures like mean, median, and mode. It is also a measure. It shows the value below. So for example, if I say 20th percentile, 20th percentile is the value below which 20% of the observation. So that is what it is. So if you take the calculation of percentile is slightly different calculation. Suppose n is the size of the. So if you want to calculate the percentile, we should have the sorted data. So here the percentile gives the relative thing. So n is the size of the sorted data. P is the percentile which we want to calculate. And when you take this, LP is location of pth percentile. So I'll give demo for this. It will be clear. Just location of L percentile, which is n minus 1 into p. And IP and FP are integers and fractional parts of. Percentile is actually calculated using LP 1 minus L. I'll take one here. Suppose I have some data like 10, 45, 3, 80, 5, just some data. 96, I have taken. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 I have taken. It's okay. For calculations, it will be simple. So here I have taken the data. N is 11. This is how many? 8, 11. N is 11.
Sorry, excuse me, sir.
Yes, madam.
So your voice is breaking, sir.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, so now it is clear, sir, but it is breaking in between, sir. Even chat box also many people put.
Now is it okay? Now you are
Yes, sir,
getting it clear? Okay, okay. So n I am taking it as 11. Suppose I want to calculate suppose some value 25th percentile. So 25th percentile I want to calculate. So first thing we have to do, as for the formula here, I'll copy this formula here so that it is easy. Just explain for me, it will be easy. So So I'll take this here. We'll also have some kinds of hands-on on this. Whatever possible, we'll do it with some hands-on, with some completion instead of hurriedly jumping. I want to give some fundamental things on which you can build your machine learning skills. So I want to calculate 25th percentile. So P here is 25. P equals to 25. So I'll take one more number here so that the calculation, because if it is 10, it will be simple. So I'll take 12 here. So 25th percentile I want to calculate, then LP. So simply LP is the location of so LP here is, if I take LP, it is multiplication 11 into 25. So 11 into 25 is 275, I think. Okay, 275. This is 0.25. I have to take percentile as 0.25, not 25. 25th percentile is 0.25, so it is 27.5. What is that? N minus 1 into P, 0.25. So 0.25 if you multiply, it will be 2.75. Yes, it's correct. Now when I say 2.75, now in this LP, integer part and fractional part, 2 is integer part. So IP is 2 and FP is 0.75. So when I take now the values XIP, so whatever there at second position, which is 1 to 25, 25 is at second position, and XP plus 1, 36. These two we have to take, these two values. So if you take these two values, the value will be like 25 into 1 minus FP, which is fractional part, 25 plus 36 into 0.75. This is how we calculate. This is the pth percentile, 0.025. That is what we do it. And in Python, we can do it very easily. So we'll just see one example for that. So I'll go to again this one. So this is what the percentage calculation. Just one example we'll see with some data. So I'll take some data here. I'll take some data. Okay, whatever data, I can take the same data here. We'll see same whatever data I have taken here. I can take same example data. I can take it. So I'll go here. Data dot as array. Take I have to give commas here in between. So that is the data. I'll print the data and in the calculation of data percentile in Python is very simple. We have to give the value there, but just I want to show this. So I want to display this with the index. So I'll say index here. So I'll display with index. So I'll say for I can do that index data. Can use for loop for I in range data of length. length data, so that I can print I comma data of I. So this just I want to display the index and so that we can get the value here. So when I say, but calculation is very simple in Python. Just if I want to calculate percentile, just I have to use the percentile function. So I can say so I'll say, suppose I want to calculate P20, P25. What I have done there. Equals P dot percentile. It is the function available in NumPy. Simply you give the data whatever required, and what is the percentile? Percentile you have to give in percentage terms, not point terms. So it will give the result. So it calculates and it gives the result. So I have to print it to get the result. So print. So 42 point. That is what the value we get. 42.75 is 25th percentile. Okay. If I take, I want to have, if I take 50th percentile, it is actually the median. So if I take P50, so NP dot percentile data of 50. Print np dot median data. So I'll say P25 print see, when you take this 50th percentile is actually median. It is, that's what it is coming here. So 50th percentile and median both are same. So first I'm printing median, then I'm printing 50th percentile. So median is actually the 50th percentile. In between, I think there is a disturbance, I think. So here, madam, can you listen me? Hello? Hello, can you listen me? Okay. Yeah, here what I'm saying is the 50th percentile is median. So if I take 50th percentile or median, I'm getting same data, and the formula, as per formula, the calculations are made. For example, suppose if I take, okay, we'll not check because there is no time here. We can cross verify with the data. So that is what the percentile. And when you take this special kind of percentile here is quartile. So when you take the special quartile is a special kind of percentile, a special case of percentile which divides the data into 4 parts. Now when you take one more special kind of percentage, it is quintile, which divides the data into 5 parts, and decile, which divides the data into 10 equal parts. So quartile, it is very frequently used. Quartile is used in machine learning because we have to calculate IQR, interquartile range. It is also, it is a kind of the measure of variation or spread. So that we'll see it now. So when you take a quartile, it is a special kind of percentile, and here first quartile is 25 percentile, and second quartile is 50 percentile, which is median, just I told you, and third quartile is 75 percentile, and Q3 minus Q1 is called as IQR, interquartile range. It is very frequently used in machine learning. We'll see when we calculate the second part of descriptive statistics, which is measures of spread or measures of variation, we are going to see interquartile range, and this you should have this interquartile range. This is also called as percentile. Quartile is a special kind of percentile. So that is one thing. That is about the measures of centrality. We have seen till now the measures of centrality. Next, we are going to see the measures of variation. The measures of variation is also called as measures of spread. When you take the measures of centrality, the one biggest problem with the measures of centrality is it will not give information about how the data is varying. Now, if you see this graph here, here, when you take, there are two different data sets here. One data set is drawn with, for one data set, there is one graph, and second data set, a completely different graph. Now, if you take mean for both of these two different data sets, it is exactly same. So the measures of centrality will not reveal anything about how the data is spread, how the data items within the data set are getting varied. So to know the variation, and also if you take one more point, the consistency of the data. For example, suppose if I take here, suppose if some two players are playing cricket, and one has scored, suppose there are 4 innings, and one person has scored 0 runs, 10 runs, 10 runs, and 200 runs, and the mean will indicate that he has performed good in the entire series, but it is not so. If you take measure of variation, suppose if the player is getting 50 runs, 60 runs, 70 runs, and again 70 runs, mean will remain same for both of them, but consistency is not there for first player, because 3 innings he has failed, and 4th inning has performed well, and mean indicates that the player has performed. So the consistency will not be known from measures of centrality. So measures of spread is also very important. Measures of spread are measures of variation. It gives how the data is getting varied, whether the data is consistent or not. It will also highlight the outliers, because outliers may impact the data badly. The measures of spread, what they do is they highlight the outliers. So they will reveal about the outliers neatly. So that is the importance of measures of spread. So measures of spread is also important thing, important measure for statistics. So when you take measures of spread, there are different one. First one is range, very simple one. Interquartile range I have just given. We'll see that interquartile range. Then variance, standard deviation is almost same. These two gives how a data item is varying with respect to the mean of the data set. Then the coefficient of variation. These things we are going to learn. And the first thing is range. When you take the range is simplest measure, because it will give the difference between the minimum and maximum values, minimum and maximum values. And when you take the range, it is sensitive to outliers. Suppose suddenly a big value comes, mostly the values are in one range, like 1 to 50. Suddenly 200 came, 200 come into the data set, then range suddenly varies. So it is sensitive to outlier. It ignores the distribution of the data because it gives only the borders, extreme ends, and it is sensitive to outliers. Then IQR I have already given, and we are going to draw a plot called box plot. So box plot is actually the plot which is very popular in machine learning. We are going to see in Python how it is going to be done. So IQR, we are going to learn about IQR. I have given the, it is related with percentile, because it is a quartile, a special kind of percentile which divides the data set into 4 parts, and that's what this is showing. And the important thing is it is not sensitive to outliers, because IQR, when you take IQR, it is only 50% of the data. it will give about the 50% of the data, because when you take this particular part in the middle part, 25 plus 25, it is IQR interquartile range. It is Q3 minus Q1 is interquartile range. So it is not sensitive to outliers, because outliers are at extreme ends. They will not be in the middle. So IQR is not sensitive to outliers. We are going to have hands-on on this. Next is variance and standard deviation. So these are the different formulas, like one formula, sigma is for population, and small s is for this sample, and there is slight difference in formulas n and n minus 1. I'll give a demo also why it is n minus 1 for sample, why it is n for population. We are going to see that. So that also as part of small demo I'll give you. There we can also see some broadcasting concept of NumPy, that also you can know.